Welcome back to Big Gold Belt Media. I am Damian G, and I just got done with Motorheads Season 1 on Prime, scheduled to drop on May 20th of this year. This show surprised me. It's a 10-episode Season 1, and it surprised me in all the best ways possible. This is it would seem on the surface, a very cut, paste by numbers coming-of-age story. But this show is what you get when you combine Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill, Seventh Heaven, and Fast and the Furious. Let me explain. The central story is around a family that is relocating to a small town in which their name or last name is known in more infamy than fame when it comes to the small town, because their parents are from said town. And there's a lineage there that follows them wherever they go, and that may or may not be a great thing. But that's the main story, at least at first. But a lot of this is brought together by the love of vehicles. Now, as not a car person per se, I found myself using the car metaphors throughout this show as a means to bring family together. And shout out to Ryan Philippy in this show, because Logan, Uncle Logan, as he's portraying in this show, was the person that brings this all together. Now, if you know Ryan Philippy, if you are a Gen Xer / millennial like myself, you know exactly who he is. But he plays the uncle with the wisdom, yet the stubbornness of dealing with teenagers. He plays it very well. And I would say he's the best performance overall of all the actors of this show. And that's not a discredit to the rest of the actors, because as I said, this is a coming of age show in which this family grows on all facets. The mom grows, the kids grow, the uncle grows, the friends grow. All around this lineage or this air of familial, as I said before, infamy. So the family comes from New York to stay in their hometown, or their mom and dad's hometown. And at this juncture, the beginning of the story, I'm not going to give away too much, but the dad is not present. But as you go on to watch the show, you understand why the dad is not present. And it's not as simple as he went for the milk and didn't come back. It's a lot more immersed. It's a lot more granular when you really break it down, because when you watch a lot of these coming of age shows, you're kind of left wanting, okay, this is just teeny bopper stuff. No, this has mystery. This has intrigue. Aside from the usual high school shenanigans, fitting in, making friends. And I feel my reviews on the channel lately have been a lot of coming of age programming. And there are tropes here that make multiple appearances with a new age twist, with a Gen Z twist, bridging the gap between Gen X and Gen Z. There's a lot of jokes in this show about Gen X, calling them boomers. I take offense to that as a late Gen Xer, early millennial. Take a lot of offense to that in all the best ways possible. There's talk of dial-up internet, computers being newfangled. If you know what that word means, you know the tone it's used in, you understand why there's a separation between Gen Z and Gen X. And that's the fun stuff, aside from the coming of age tropes that we see throughout this show, discussing lineage. There's rich kids, there's the middle class kids, there's the working class kids, there's the kid who has alcoholic parents. All these things make a melting pot to make a core group of friends throughout this show that I stuck with as if they were my friends. I really wanted to know how these relationships developed as the show went on. And special shout out to Melissa Colazzo, who played the youngest daughter on the show, and her take on the tomboy into cars identity showed a lot of growth at the beginning of the season, and it segued to an even bigger growth point when you get into themes of identity politics, who you are, who you want to be, what people want for you, as I said, tropes, but they're a little different this time around. And I have to thank the writers of this for being able to not only show that there is a bridging of the gaps, like I said before, but you can shine light on something using it's sort of like a narrative around one object, but there's so many things that permeate from the object. In this case, it's restoring and reviving their father's muscle car. Again, I don't know a lot about cars, so forgive me for not knowing makes and models. But I will say the characters of Zach, of Marcel, specifically Marcel is another one. Shout out to Nicholas Cantu, his portrayal of Marcel, of the eccentric, kind of artsy, kind of nerdy, doesn't know where he fits in, tries to make friends. He's kind of awkward. Take it from me. I understand that trope. I understand that character. And then there's Curtis. Curtis, portrayed by, I believe, yes, Uriah Shelton from Girl Meets World and Boy Meets World fame. The cool guy in town who takes a liking to Melissa Colazzo's character of Caitlin. And it's and if you grew up with this show, you know exactly what I mean. It comes across very Dawson and Joey or Dawson and Jen from Dawson's Creek. And I'll leave it at that. But those 10 episodes, as we go on and we watch this show, it becomes less about the car and more about what the car represents. It's less about high school and more about family. And I hate, again, to use that phrase because I'm borrowing from Fast and Furious when it comes to the cars. Now, the mystery of this town started 17 years before the show. There's criminal mischief happening. That's the easiest way I'll say it without spoiling too much. But there is a mystery of who done it. There's mysteries wrapped in enigmas, wrapped in riddles that you're going to have to watch all 10 episodes to fully understand. Even I was lost at a couple of points during my viewing experience, but I was able to keep up with the series and keep up with the flashbacks and the present day things. And there is also notes of change being both uncomfortable and necessary, because when you're moving back to the town you grew up in and you see things are not the same way as they were when you lived there. And shout out to Natalie Keeley as Samantha, who plays the mom. You might know her from Tokyo Drift. The way she views her hometown is not the way it is now, and it doesn't sit right with her. So on one hand, she doesn't want to relive the past. On the other hand, she can't let go. So that's another thing you want to keep kind of holding close to as you watch this show. I brought up Marcel, his need to fit in. That happens the entirety of this episode. But again, the power of friendship, if you watch Thunderbolts, the power of friendship prevails over all. Michael Cimino as Zach is probably my least likable character, only because he comes across in the first few episodes as the I don't want to be here kid, but then he gets a hint of popularity. He gets a smell of the new life. He's a big fish in a small pond, as it were, and he slowly starts to gain this confidence. And it becomes ego. It becomes arrogance. And as it goes on, you start to, at least I started to hate his character. There's a few moments partway through the end where he starts to be a little bit more redeemable in my eyes. But overall, I just didn't like the character of Zach. I liked Marcel. I liked Caitlin. I liked Curtis. But the number one, for me, the linchpin that kept this all together is Ryan Phillippe's Logan, Uncle Logan, who is the uncle, but the brother of the father of the children. I can say that 3 times fast. I promise I know how to speak English. So it's a lot of moving parts, pardon the pun, the car pun. So I really enjoyed a lot of this. What I didn't enjoy, and it's not that much, but as much as I'm enjoying every single character's arc, there are some side characters where they get their arcs kind of forced in, falling again into tropes, acceptance from family, self-acceptance, knowing when something's toxic for you, when to leave a toxic situation, knowing when you have outgrown something. These are all worthwhile messages, yes. But I gotta admit, shoehorning all these in a 10 episode season when these aren't the main characters, it left me a little bored, confused, annoyed might be the better word I'm using to use in this situation. Like, I understand A plots, B plots. You didn't need a C, D, and E plot over this 10 episode arc. Just one of my biggest nitpicks. And while the pacing of this show was really good and it didn't really bore me at all, it kept me really motivated. There were a couple of moments within, I want to say maybe episode 5 and 6, where we kind of grinded to a halt and gave the adults something to do. And giving the adults something to do that's not the main storyline, it kind of fell flat with me, even though I understand what the overall message was, what the tone was, but it kind of missed me. And maybe it's just me. You could let me know down in the comments below, but I think that was one of the main things that kept this from reaching levels of like A to A plus in terms of rating. The tween and teen cast, as I said, was amazing. And I'll say this. If you are an early millennial like myself or a late Gen Xer, you won't feel out of place while watching this. You'll probably get a lot of warm fuzzies going back to, like I said before, One Tree Hill, Seventh Heaven, all those things on the CW and WB when we were growing up. And this reminds you of it while putting in a very nice Gen Z spin on it. Yeah, we're the butt of the joke a few times. I'm okay with that. That happens. The slang, the terminology, making fun of our slang and terminology, making fun of computers. As I said before, dial-up internet. That's fine. But overall, I'm going to give Motorheads an A- B+ grade, 8 out of 10. I want more. Don't know if there'll be a season 2. The way this all wraps up alludes to a potential season 2, and I hope we get one. We started off a show about cars, repairing cars, and then it became life lessons. Thank you to Dottie. If you're watching the show, you'll know who I mean. Thank you to Dottie for teaching those life lessons. This winds up being a story about family and legacy and what's the lineage you want to leave behind, or the legacy you want to leave behind as it relates to your lineage, be it small town, be it big city. Thoroughly enjoyable, 8 out of 10. Give it a B+/A-. But let me know down in the comments below, what did you think of Motorheads? Again, dropping on May 20th. Amazon Prime, you did good here. Surprisingly good. I can't wait for more. But let me know down in the comments again below. Like, share, subscribe here at Big Gold Belt Media. You can follow me at Damien G Show across the board, as well as my fledgling channel here at Damien G Reviews on YouTube. I'll catch you in the next one.